How did stealth video get started?
It's an interesting story. In December of 1999, at the time I was managing supervisor for some finance companies in the local Atlanta area. I was Christmas Eve and I was off work that day, but I was going to pick up a rental car. On the way to pick up the rental car, I passed by one of my offices and it was after 9 o'clock in the morning and the blinds were still closed, which I thought was kind of odd because the store should have been open. So I said, well, let me just swing in here and see why the office isn't open. So pulled in, went inside and walked into an armed robbery. My manager at the time was at the front of the store with a gun at her head, and a guy standing over her wanting her to open the safe. And she couldn't get the safe open. It was a combination lock safe. So she was having a hard time getting the safe open. She was crying, and they brought me in to open the safe. I opened the safe up, and at the time we kept cash in the safe, but they had already dispersed it throughout the office. Once I opened the door, there was no cash in there. Then they got upset, and they demanded where the rest of the money was, and then they figured out that they had all the money in the office after an argument with them about it, and they put us all in the bathroom and threatened if the police came, they were gonna shoot us all and not to come out of the bathroom. So they locked us all in the bathroom. We were in there for about 10 minutes, and then we came out, and they had already left. They cut all the phone lines, and at that particular time, we didn't have any security cameras in place. My boss asked me if I knew anybody who knew how to do security cameras, and my father-in-law had just retired from Sears at the time, and I said, well, I can ask him and see if he knows how to do that, and that's kind of how the conversation went with my father-in-law.
So I had been with that company about 30 years and had retired and had gone into the really construction business. And that during the time I worked for that company, I had done all kinds of things, of course, a lot of electronics, TV repairs and things like that. But I was doing the construction work, and so Alan asked me, could I do video security cameras? And I said, I believe I could do that. So we put in some cameras at the location where he'd gotten robbed, and it was, pretty straightforward. In those days, you put about 4 cameras in, watching the front door, the back door, that sort of thing. And so it ended up being easy work, really, compared to building decks and closing basements and things like that. So that's kind of how we got started.
So was that the first job?
That was the first job with this video security cameras, was that job. And then it worked pretty well, and so his company decided they wanted the cameras in all the locations. So we did about 50 stores at that time.
So what was the technology of that day, back in 1999 versus today?
That's interesting, because at that time we had low resolution black and white cameras, about 320 lines resolution, not too clear. And we recorded it on a VCR. And the tapes at that time were like 2 hours long, and then you had to go switch out the tapes every so often during the day. And then they came out with an 8-hour video tape. So that was pretty fabulous, because you only had to change it like one time during the day. And before you go home at night, you had to change the tape, make sure they were fresh. But another thing about the technology at that time was you had a device called a switcher. No matter how many cameras you had, it would record the first camera, and it would switch over to the second camera, and the third camera, fourth camera, however many you had, and then it would finally come back to the first camera again. And by then, the perpetrator would probably be gone. You might not even catch a video of him at all. But that's the way that technology was then, and so it greatly changed today.
So, Alan, what is the technology like today?
The technology is, as you know, has come a long ways. Everybody has cameras on their cell phones. Everybody's pulling up their video on their cell phones. So the whole camera industry has changed drastically since then. I don't even remember us having cell phones back when we first got started. If we did, they were just little flip phones. They couldn't do.
There were bag phones sitting
Yeah.
between the seats in the car.
Couldn't do anything with them. So now everybody's watching cameras, one way or another. It's all over the news. It's all over everything. So everybody has a camera. So the whole business has changed drastically.
So what kind of clients do you serve today?
Commercial. We don't really go into the residential market. We do commercial businesses, pretty much any type of commercial business. We've done pretty much any application you can think of over the last 20 years of being in business. So anything commercial, large or small, we can handle it.
What are the reasons why businesses should have cameras in their business?
Lots of reasons. Cameras are used now for evidence. They're used for management. With the world changing and everybody working remotely, the whole business industry has changed. How staff is managed and how the business is kept up with. There's liability issues. There's a lot of reasons to have cameras in your business, not just for security now. So they're used in many different ways.
And so, Ray, how long has Stealth been in business now?
Stealth's been in business a little over 20 years, and a lot of changes in that time. As Alan said, it's come a long ways. And security cameras does give you the evidence of what happened when the police come out. If you have an incident, then you can certainly do that. And another thing, as he said, is management of personnel, and kind of keeps honest people honest.